Welcome to Psych Health and Safety in Canada. I'm your host, Marianne Baton, and today I'm really happy to welcome Jonathon Paglia. Jonathon is the owner of Evolvement Safety Group and works in mining, has worked in the oil fields, and really is all about safety. Jonathon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be on here and to have some further discussions and really elaborate on our collaboration of what we both work around. So I'm excited to chat.
Well, and the stereotype, John, has been that blue collar work, it doesn't really focus on psychological health and safety. I know, especially after talking to you, that this is not true. And I wonder when and how you first became aware of the concept of psychological health and safety.
You know what, to be honest with you, I would say back about 8 years ago in my career, I started to see it in the major corporations in oil and gas. They really started to we've seen a big focus on incidences that were occurring, and as we kind of narrowed it down to the root cause, it was coming back as just inadequate situational awareness, which after years and years you couldn't really put something on that to improve it from happening again. So that's when companies really got into the human performance aspect of it, and recognizing the psychological decisions people make, and understanding what human performance is in the workplace.
So tell me a little bit more about that concept, the human performance.
So human performance, you know what, I'll start off with just a quick definition of what human performance is, so people really understand. But human performance is really defined as human capabilities and limitations which really have an impact on the safety and the efficiency of an operation. So I'll kind of break it down into two aspects. And I think the biggest one is understanding we're all human. And of course, we all make mistakes, right? And we have at some point in our life. So, you know, it's getting to dig in a little deeper, like I mentioned to you, about incidents occurring, and really getting to the root cause of why is this happening. It's targeted towards situational awareness on why it's happening. But we wanted to look deeper on what's making that person make that decision. And you know, just to make a quick example here this morning, you know, with everything going on, I got the kids at home with the online learning. I'm starting to make their breakfast in the morning, and I'm doing peanut butter and jam. I go to put things away, and this is a prime example of human performance. I've got lots of things on my mind. I'm thinking about the day, and I go and I put the jam in the cupboard instead of the fridge. Now, you know, that's not a huge risk, but you use that concept in the workplace, and it can lead to a real incident. And that's just the distraction of human performance in our mind. So, right, you can dig a little deeper and understand in the workplace that at work, you know, a prime example would be somebody coming in that's tired, you know, and really understanding and asking the right questions on, you know, why are you tired? Well, you know what, I was up late last night. I was maybe arguing with my wife, or I'm stressed out about this, and really understanding how that plays an impact on that individual's work the next day, and how it really does put a risk at critical tasks that they may be doing that day, especially around a group involvement where you've got multiple people involved in a task, and that one person may not be putting their 100% in because they're distracted, and a lot because of the psychological aspect that you and I have talked about quite a bit. So that's the big thing behind it, really, is starting to coach and mentor people to really understand what human performance is, and to recognize it right away in the workplace. As a coworker, you know, you potentially may have a coworker come up to you and say, you know what, I had a rough night last night. I didn't sleep well. And it's being able to identify that and understand that there is a potential risk there for those people working around that person that day.
Yeah, so that, you know, you're using human performance behaviors to describe something that some of us would call mindfulness, right? Being present in the moment, being aware of what's going on around you. But you've probably couched it in language that doesn't sound so touchy-feely. So language that people can hear. Jonathan, there's another term that you use that was interesting to me, and that is individual risk tolerance.
Yeah, you know what? Again, risk tolerance is a huge thing, and it really falls back to our leadership and our supervision in the workplace. And why I say that is there's always expectations, whether that's policies or procedures to follow. But as leaders, as supervisors, we have to understand that we have to follow that expectation. As a supervisor, if we set the bar lower, the people under us are going to measure themselves against that bar, which sometimes is not correct, right? Now, when I say lower the bar, it could be something as simple as not wearing their safety glasses when they're supposed to wear their safety glasses to prevent a potential injury, or gloves or anything along those lines. So it's really important as leaders that we understand what risk tolerance is and understand that people follow the bar that we set. Like I say, as supervisors, if we set that bar lower, then the people below us are going to follow our footsteps. So very important, risk tolerance to be measured and followed correctly in the workplace.
So flip that concept from physical safety to psychological safety. What's our individual risk tolerance? What are you looking at when you're talking about that and you're talking about psychological safety?
I think the big thing is we all psychologically know what the rules and the procedures are, but we have our own individual risk tolerance that can be very dangerous. We do something by taking a shortcut and we do it 1,000 times and never get hurt. That's what really adjusts our risk tolerance. And when we have that culture, it's very dangerous because we have multiple people below us that are following our footsteps. And if we don't recognize risk tolerance, we definitely raise the possibility for injury or property damage, anything along those lines in the workplace.
I'm thinking about individual risk tolerance for things like teasing, bullying, intimidation. And how would you, when those sorts of behaviors are happening in the workplace, and maybe most of the people there can tolerate it, they can just, let it go and not be too worried. And some people can be crushed by that kind of behavior. How do you intervene in those cases?
You know what? I think the biggest thing these major corporations really push is the stop work authority. And, that goes from everything to feet on the ground and something just doesn't look right to, as you mentioned, the physical aspects and the mental aspects behind it of, doing something that doesn't feel right and being able to speak up. The major corporations that I've seen in the past really, really push the message that stop work authority and really stop and think about this stuff. There's no repercussions. When you're on major projects and there's a lot of money involved, these major corporations have stepped up and said, you know what, we're not going to make a big issue if you stop a job that's costing a lot of money per hour. We will acknowledge what you've brought to the table. We'll stop, we'll reassess as a group, make sure everybody's comfortable with what we've talked about, and then move forward. So the psychological aspect, I think, is being supported by these major corporations, which is really good to see. I mean, like we discussed, that's really only started to happen in the last 8 years that I've seen in my career. So it's a huge change and it's a huge step in the right direction.
I'm really thinking in like a typical office, I can't even imagine somebody saying, well, you're bullying me, so I need to stop work right now. And yet the same occupational health and safety rules that apply would apply to every workplace, but it's just not done. It's just not common that it would happen. So if somebody were to say, I want to stop work because of a bullying or intimidation or harassment incident, tell me how that plays out. Like, how long is work shut down for, and how do they get people back to work and resolve these issues?
A lot of it really ties back to the HR and these major corporations, because of course, a lot of these corporations all have safe operating procedures. They've got policies and procedures around harassment in the workplace, violence in the workplace. So a lot of those things end up getting escalated through the HR department, where they properly investigate the incident. They make sure they collaborated both sides of the story to really understand, where the communication or where the issue has come from and rooted from, and trying to move forward on resolving the issue. Or in a lot of cases, if you've breached that policy and procedure, there'll be disciplinary action to it, which is really what sets the bar, right? That really shows that you can't get away with doing this in the workplace, because you're going to be let go, or you're going to see some disciplinary action at minimum.
That stop work authority would mean that the individual stops work, not that a job shuts down. Is that correct?
No, we'll actually stop the job down. Going back to the oil rigs, stuff like that, when you're working in a high risk, critical, hazardous area, and everybody's working together as a team, you're dealing with different levels of education and experience. And I always say to people, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And when you're working together in a group, that's where this human performance comes into limitations. Your green workers, or your new workers to the field, they have limitations because they don't know yet. They're new to the industry. So it's really important as leaders that we recognize this, and we slow the pace down. We work to their comfort level and their limitation level, and don't exceed that, because a lot of times what happens is that is the root cause of a serious injury or a fatality, because we put somebody in a position that they're not comfortable working in.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also talk about coaching and mentoring. And again, the stereotype is you're being paid, do your job. This is what I expect of you, especially in blue collar trades. And yet, when you spoke to me about coaching and mentoring, it sounded like there's been a significant evolution in terms of the way we treat people. Can you speak a bit about some of your experience coaching and mentoring others?
Absolutely. Again, it kind of goes back to the old way, right? There still is a few people out there that still, kind of push that narrative that it's the way I want it, and you're going to follow, and you're going to listen to the way I want to do it, and don't question what I'm doing. I've seen a lot of that kind of tear away now, because of the support of these big corporations, that they won't tolerate that, right? It's simple that we'll have to sit down with them, and we'll lay out our expectations of what we expect as a leader. And not everybody is there right off the hop. So that's where the coaching and mentoring comes in, to really work with these people on, again, if you have to remind them about policies and procedures around harassment, or those sorts of things. Sometimes that's what we need to do, and really open their eyes to. You will get a way better result when you work with people, and it just goes back to even being a kid, right? And you think about how you're talked to, and how you interpreted things when somebody's yelling at you, or go do this right now, and it's like, oh, you're right away, you're tense, right? So it's really important when you're coaching and mentoring people to really put yourself in their shoes. Talk to them as how you would want to be treated. And the idea between coaching and mentoring is really, you're there to make them better. You're really there to explain to them, why this isn't safe. Can you work with me and explain to me what we can do to make this situation better? And I let them tell me, right? And I help try and guide them in the right direction rather than me come off as, more of a, this is how you're going to do it. You're doing it wrong. You should be doing it like this. I've always found in my career, Marianne, that doesn't get you very far.
No, it might get you immediate obedience, but it's certainly not going to get you loyalty and commitment. Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Right.
John, how would you describe the differences between maybe what a white collar workplace might do in terms of approaching these things and what you do to make sure you're meeting people where they're at?
I guess the difference in a great tool that works in the office complex that I've seen is just the e-colors. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a program put in place that basically divides things up into 4 quadrants, and there are 4 different colors. And those colors are based on, red, for instance, would be a doer, somebody that's a real kind of get things done. And then it kind of tears off to a yellow, which is somebody that's more socialized. They'll be a socializer. They'll talk a lot. They're more involved and engaged. And then you get into blue, which are people that are more relators or more supporters to people. And then green, which is people that like to think a lot. They like to put a lot of thought into things before they do them. So it's a simple little quiz, but what that does is it identifies how people think on a human performance aspect. So once you finish this quiz, it'll give you, you're either a red over a green or a yellow over a blue, whatever that looks like. But we will identify it in our signature of our emails. We'll identify it through a phone conversation. If I were to call you, Marianne, I would say, how you doing? It's Jonathon Paglia from Involvement Safety. I'm blue over green. And right away, before we further our conversation, you would know what type of person I am and how I would take things and how you would approach things with me. So some real important tools that are out there that really do work well in both aspects, whether it's in an office complex or right in the field.
So that's everybody on the front lines would know their colors as well?
That's something that we have. I know Chevron is a big supporter of that, and in my past career, I've seen that where we have implemented that to a field level, and really break the ice with things, right? And really better understand who people are. Makes it really breaks the ice, I guess is the best way to put it, right? You really know who you're dealing with before. If they're a real doer, you know that you've got to take a different approach with that person on, how you're going to coach and mentor them.
Yeah. Get to the point. What do you want?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As opposed to the thinker, which is why, why are we doing this? How's it going to make a difference? And, I was just having a conversation with someone that the first step to being a leader is to be self-aware. Right? To really understand yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths, your negative emotions, as well as your positive emotions, and then you can help other people. But if you don't understand yourself, then you're really coming from a negative space and assuming about other people, just like you assume about yourself. When we look at effective leadership in a blue collar place, do you think there's any difference, or do you think it really now today is similar to a white collar leader?
You know what? I think it's becoming more and more similar, to be honest with you, because the risk out there, right? In these critical in the field kind of jobs, there's a lot of risk out there. And what I find is we've taken it a further step. Not only have we just looked at the hazards and we've, identified them, we've put control measures in place, we've taken it one other further step, and that's verification and validation. We can say that it's icy and it's slippery out there, and the safeguard is we're going to put salt down, we're going to shovel, but have we verified that that's actually been done before we start the job? And so verification and validation is that one extra step before we start. Let's go ensure that all our safeguards are in place, in fact, before we start the job. And that there is a huge step in really mitigating the potential for an incident to occur.
Yeah, and I mean, I can translate that to psych health and safety, that it's not enough that we have pretty words on a wall saying there's no I in team and we're all in this together, but are we actually treating each other that way? Are our employees even equipped to resolve conflict and to manage in a way that's helpful? Jonathon, next, can you share with us some of the successes that you've had in your career in helping people to see things differently, to interact in a better way, to lead in a better way? Just a couple of your success stories.
I mean, even just a recent one here with my latest job working in the mine industry. We're working with different companies from all over Canada, from different provinces. And of course, there's different regulations, different training requirements. So, and also there's language barriers. So I tend to really get put a lot with those contractors that need help, that really need to be brought up to that expectation bar. So that is one of them that I've had to deal with, where they've started off in the workplace with us and they've had 3 major incidences right off the hop within a span of 3 months. And that's really where I'll work with them and guys, let's really get back to the basics here, and that's where I kind of talk about those 3 topics that we just talked about. Is what is the risk tolerance? That's the first thing I usually identify. Is it a lack of leadership? And sometimes, a lot of the times, that's what it is. We tend to really come down on the worker when really it's not the worker's fault. It's not the worker's fault for not wearing his gloves or that led to an injury, because like I said, it really comes back to that risk tolerance of the supervisor that's allowed that to happen. And so when you recognize it on a higher level, that's where you'll get results a lot quicker. And I tend to tell people quite a bit too when I'm coaching and mentoring on the safety aspect of it. If we pre-plan and we follow our plan and execute it correctly, safety is always a result. And if we have that mentality and we follow procedures to a T and we do things the right way, we will send everybody home at the end of the day without getting hurt. And if we take things day by day, that's where you really start to see those results. But and it kind of goes back to the involvement safety group. That takes engagement, right? And when we engage with our workers and we show them support, those results come.
Yeah, great. In terms of you helping those leaders, can you share something about an example of where you were able to take, what I call old school leadership and help somebody to evolve?
Absolutely. And really it comes back to that risk tolerance. So dealing with a project manager on a huge batch plant, which is creating cement for a huge multi-million-dollar project. This individual really doesn't see the same risk I see. So a good thing to do is kind of take them out and walk with them and, what do you see? And help to train and mentor them on your level of what you see. And a lot of times you'll get that question, that's not a big deal. When I point something out as a hazard, they'll go, oh, come on, that's just common sense. Well, it's really, that I use that as a tool, right? There's no common sense anymore. We have the tools to protect people. We need to use them. So if it's a matter of, there's hot steam lines producing steam to keep things warm, and we've allowed access for people to kind of enter this area, we have tools to flag the area off that it's dangerous, do not enter. So, that would be a prime example, is really kind of turning those people to really understand that, that may be common sense for you, but again, there's different levels of experience out there. And for those new workers, they may not recognize that, right, as a hazard or as a potential hazard that may lead to an incident, right? So it has its tough times for sure, but I think it takes the right people with the right training, and everybody seems to be continuously learning towards this human performance and how it plays a big aspect in a psychological way of people thinking and how they perform their jobs. You know, that little example I gave you about the jam in the cupboard this morning. I mean, there's a prime example of me, got lots of things on my mind. I'm thinking of other things, and that's really not a huge risk. But if you take that and change that example to, you know, somebody standing at a street corner intersection and really not paying attention, and the light turns green for Jesus, I'm going to start walking across the road now. Again, it's that quick second, you know, where we've lost track and we've had distraction happen, and just like that, we have an incident occur. So it's recognizing that really, and really helping people to understand, to keep their mind on task.
Yeah, you reminded me. I remember hearing a woman speak at a conference once, and she had worked in a plant where the process was there was this cutting thing. I can't tell you the technical name for it, but everybody walked over it because it was recessed into the floor. And it was common practice that everybody jumped over it. Well, she was new on the job and she fell into it and she lost her life. And it's that, you know, well, it's the way we've always done it and it's not a problem. Nobody's ever been hurt. And we just consider that. And it makes me think from a psychological health and safety perspective, you know, where you say, well, we have always teased each other. We always call each other names. We always speak this way. You know, it's all in good fun. But then there's somebody for whom maybe they had abuse as a child. Maybe they had a different traumatic experience where that kind of behavior towards them is significantly damaging. The concept of civility and respect to me is different in different work environments. So in terms of the work environments that you deal with, what is the standard for civility and respect and how we interact with each other?
You know what, to be honest with you, it's that zero tolerance. You know, coming from a field level of, you know, working on a job site where there's 800 to 1,500 people and you're staying in camp, you're working on a day-to-day out there, that respect level has to travel all the way from your workplace to where you sleep at night. You know, you're interacting in kitchen with people. You really have to have respect right across the board on where you are. And again, there's really zero tolerance for, you know, people that will disrespect security guards or, you know, disrespect kitchen staff. You know, they'll use nasty words. They'll express their emotion to them, you know, and that's where really we look back at our policies and procedures on harassment, violence in the workplace, and we stick to those. So once you set that bar, that there's zero tolerance for that, it usually the message gets across pretty quick. Obviously, you do have your certain individuals that you know, they still don't understand that, and unfortunately lose their job because of it. So
for you, it's what about the orientation, John, to take somebody who maybe doesn't have this idea of zero tolerance, that they think this is teasing or me just expressing myself? How do you orient them to this new culture?
That's a great question. I mean, that is the first step to coming on board to a major project is sitting down and going through, you know, sometimes an hour presentation on an orientation of what the expectations are, what the rules and regulations are, and then they sign off on that. So it's not that they don't know, it's they're caught up in their own stresses and their own human performance issues that they're dealing with personally. And sometimes, there's room to work with individuals like that in the workplace. And then there's times where, you strike one, strike two, okay, strike three, it's time, we've got to discipline this person, right? And it's time for them to leave the project just because of the fact they really are stuck in their way. And as a corporation, we have to divide those people and really try and keep the workplace safe.
Mm-hmm. And do you get pushback from the unions on that?
You know what? They're pretty black and white. I mean, when it comes to the policies and procedures, there's not much wiggle room there. If we've got the evidence and we've got the statements from the people that were mistreated, it makes it pretty easy for us to follow through with what those policies and procedures strictly say. So it's not so bad that way. I will give you another example of a great tool, and it's what we call a behavioral based observation. And that's just a simple tool that somebody can indicate behavior or an at-risk behavior that they see out there in the field. Now, that has always been another struggle to initiate that. And why I say that is because you always have that mentality out there that I don't want to rat on my coworker here and say that he's not doing the right thing. But if you take the right psychological approach on that and you use that tool to the right ability, you will get the right results. And how I do that is, first obviously explaining this is not about pointing people out. It's about continuous improvement in the workplace. So if we see a trend out there and we document it, it's not just document it and push it off to the supervisor and be done with it. What I like to do is actually, let's present this. Let's take the top 10 that we've seen throughout the day and let's mention it in our next safety meeting in the next morning so that all the workers recognize this hazard and they recognize the control measure that we've done to stop it. So when they start to see that you're really building a culture to improve everybody's well-being out there, that's when you start to see the change in the culture itself.
That's a great point. Rather than it always being about catching somebody doing something wrong, you've flipped it to helping people do something right. And
that's right.
Yeah, it's that.
And you know what? You really see it, them take it home with them, right? When you really instill it in them to a positive level, it sticks in them, right? And when you really think of the psychological aspect of it is, just like I said before, if you're yelling at somebody and coming down on them, their interpretation of absorbing that information is not the same of supporting them and talking and coaching them through it to do better.
Right. Because if you're yelling at me, I'm contracting, I'm withdrawing, I'm justifying, I'm defending. I might even be counterattacking. But
that's right.
Yeah. If you're coaching me, I still might feel, a little bristly about it, but it's kind of hard to have somebody say, I'd like to help, how could we do this better? And to say, no, I'm not doing it. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
And it's tough too, because you see such a wide variety of experience coming out. But what we've studied in the workplace and the field level is it really doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. You could be 20, 30 years in your career. But where we've really focused down is a lot of incidents occur when you're new to the operation. So you could have 30 plus years, but because you're not familiar with the location, the equipment, it tends to lead towards an incident. So having the right programs in place where we actually will assign a mentor to somebody that's never been on location for a duration of 14 days. So that gives that senior person, even though they have the experience, they've got somebody assigned to them to take them around and really mentor and show them and make sure that they don't end up, putting themselves in a situation where they could get hurt.
Now that mentor for the 14 days, do they also have a full-time job that they're doing, or are they actually focused 100% on mentoring?
no, this will be specific to them, or in the same case, this will be somebody coming in to do that same role. So we'll put them with a senior experienced individual for that 14 days and really allow them to understand the layout of the location. Because like I say, that's really where we've seen a lot of incidences occur, are those people that are just new to site.
Yeah, I know sometimes it is a necessity, but I always question the value of saying to someone, take these online courses, read these policies and processes, and then you're just going to start working. Because without that hands-on guidance, you're not getting the nuances about the culture, but also about how you actually apply the safety rules or the civility and respect rules in practical ways. So you said earlier that orientation is the most important time, and you're backing it up saying that's when most of the incidents happen, is when somebody's new to a situation. We could, in all industries, do a better job of that for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Another big thing too is you see it on a contractual side, right? You actually, grant people the contract for the job and the corporation takes on the project. But where the gap is, and we've done gap analysis on this, is the information of the policies and procedures aren't shared correctly down to the field level. And there is another example of where you start seeing the gap and start seeing issues, because they really don't understand what our expectation is to work safe. So again, that's really where that comes into place too, where I've had to work closely with these contractors to really understand that gap analysis, whether they come from a different province, they're used to doing things a different way, but then they come here. And another real big part of it is not overwhelming, right? Some of these new workers, for us have been in the industry long enough, we've gradually learned this stuff. But when you just walk into it from not knowing anything, you got to be very direct on what you do give them, I find. And I like to take, baby steps, but really watch the risk, really understand that they understand the risk, and then take baby steps with them to further understand the importance of different things that will apply to their job.
Yeah, so important in your field. There was something else we talked about, John, that hit me, is your sort of recognition and understanding. And I think the context you were talking about was COVID testing, and that some people are afraid of needles, some people are afraid of the test, having something put into their nose, and how to be respectful, because you're dealing often with people that on the outside appear to be really strong, and yet these things are very difficult for them or frightening. Can you speak a little bit about seeing the human behind the sort of tough guy image?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in definitely a time in this world that's put a lot of extra stress on people with the COVID situation. Dealing with it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Everybody, of course, has their own political views on it, but I always focus back to the workplace, right? And the requirements in the workplace. Not all of us like to wear masks, but at this point, it's a requirement, right? It's not one of those things. So when it comes to the vaccinations and stuff like that, we've been very fortunate in the mine industry on the particular project that I'm on, that we've been able to keep the coronavirus to a very minimum, and that all has to do with the organization of how we've done our testing. So people flying in, we'll put them on a bus right away. We take them to a bus terminal where we do the security checks, we do the COVID testing. So right at that point, we've caught potential positive cases before it gets onto the project. And I think that's the key, is really protecting the actual project itself in its own bubble, almost like the NHL has done, as an example. But getting back more towards dealing with the people aspect of it, it's tough. I mean, yeah, I've had grown men break down in tears with me and say, you know, I'm not really for this vaccination thing, and that now becomes a choice that we have to make, right? In the workplace, of course, we've got these policies and procedures in place to keep people safe. And then it really now becomes a personal question that you have to ask yourself, you know. And I think we've done a great job to mitigate and keep people safe in the workplace from COVID. And again, it's a decision that you personally got to make. Do you want to continue working here, or, you know, go back to, you know, maybe just working from home, doing something where you don't have to worry about the testing regularly? Because that is one thing, we do test frequently. You don't just get tested before you come in on a 14-day rotation. We'll test, you know, day 3, 4, 5. You got to come in and get a PCR test done as well, just because of the transmissibility rate that's out there with the Omicron.
So talk to me, though, a little bit more about really getting to see the fear in individuals in your work, and being able to connect on that human level beyond the transactional. These are the policies, these are the rules, that you can understand what's going on for a person and have them comfortable enough to actually break down in tears, to share with you their vulnerabilities.
And I think the best way to answer that is that's a relationship that they feel supported by your involvement. So by my involvement with them in coaching and mentoring, they feel they're supported, that they can come to me and bring up these issues, and they know I will look at it at every angle. I will be there to support them in every way. That's the key to really having that open door policy, where, you know, if you respect the workers, they respect you. They understand you're there to support them, and the outcome really is a win-win. You know, you're there to work together for everybody to improve the workplace. So I would say that's probably the best aspect to it.
A simple concept, right? You respect the workers and they'll respect you. That's that's an easy
right.
one. Yeah. Any other
it sounds simple, but
it sounds simple, and it is simple, but it takes continual effort. I think it's not a difficult thing to do, but you have to do it consistently in order to keep that trust, right? It can't be, I'm respectful most of the time, but I blow up once in a while, because that sort of depletes that. Yeah. Any other tips or strategies that you use that you would recommend in terms of helping to protect the psychological health and safety of workers?
I think honestly is really going back to understanding what human performance is, and really put yourself in other people's shoes during especially these difficult times with everything going on. But I typically look at every season as we go along too, right? Every season can be different for different individuals, whether it's you lost loved ones around Christmas time, that might be a difficult time for you. So it's important to really look at the big picture of it all, and really, you know, again, just recognize that people may not have slept well, you know, may have had arguments, and really put yourself in their shoes and be there to support them, and let them know, like, if you're not feeling well, you need to get extra rest. It's important to support that, and whether it's send them back to camp to get adequate rest. But it's recognizing that, right? And that's the biggest one. I think if we can all start to educate ourselves in recognizing this, then it helps with the supporting it, right? If we can recognize it, then it makes it that much easier to support it.
Yeah, a simple thing. One more question for you, John, and that is, how would you describe a psychologically healthy and safe workplace to somebody who has no idea what the concept is and wants to understand what it looks like, what it feels like?
I would say, number one, it's a place where you feel welcome, a place where you feel supported, and a place where you feel safe. When you can see a record of sustaining an incident-free operation, and you're coming into a project that's been 500, 600, 700 days without a serious incident, that alone is an eye-opener for you that you're coming to a good place. You're coming to a place that supports you, that does everything in their best interest to make sure you go home at the end of the day without any injury, that you can go and enjoy your money that you have made. But I would say those are the big aspects of it.
That feeling welcome, it's a huge add to people. So Jonathon Paglia, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for breaking through some of the stereotypes that people might have about blue collar workers. When I first listened to you and realized how far, to play on your words, the industry has evolved, that it gave me a lot of hope. It gave me a lot of encouragement, because I get to speak to the blue collar workers after they've been crushed. And I don't mean that physically. I don't mean it was a safety issue. I mean, after they've been crushed psychologically, mentally, emotionally. And I've longed for a different response. And I think you are helping to provide it. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Marianne, for the opportunity. I'm glad we were able to have the conversation.
Yes. You will be able to see clips of this on Flourish DX's LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn, and hopefully people can find you on your LinkedIn if they're looking for the Evolvement. Am I saying that right? Evolvement Safety Group? Yes, good.
I kind of made my own word up there.
Yeah, you made it up. That's good. That's the way to do it. And the whole podcast will be on psychealthandsafetycanada.com. So thanks again, Jonathon.
That's great. Thanks, Marianne. Much appreciated.